By our partners, Solar Dynamics, the most efficient energy systems.
Good night and welcome to another edition of The People's Business. I'm Shane Seeley, and tonight we introduce you to artificial intelligence. That's what we're talking about tonight, and the risks and the rewards, because they're both sides of the coin where we're talking about AI. And we have the experts in to delve into this topic tonight. Professor Justin Robinson is the Pro-Vice Chancellor for the Board of Undergraduate Studies at the University of the West Indies at Cave Hill. We also have Anthony Harris here with us tonight. He's the President of Information Systems Security Association, the Barbados chapter. And Andre Woodvine, he is a musician, composer, and educator. Good to have you gentlemen all on to talk about AI, the risks and the rewards here on The People's Business. We'll take a short break and be back in a moment. It's really good to have you at home spending some time with us, delving into the world of artificial intelligence, which is really taking over the world. There have been many advances that could transform science, medication, and other fields when you talk about AI, and much more is expected to come. But some people are concerned that it could affect the way we know and the way we do work and the level of employment as well. Let's take a look at how AI is changing our world.
A report by investment bank Goldman Sachs estimates 300 million jobs worldwide could be disrupted by AI.
According to several studies, the occupations most likely to be severely disrupted or even eliminated by AI include software engineers, accountants, administrative assistants, and journalists.
Kevin Zhang, whose company sells AI-augmented tools to employers, says app developers may become obsolete.
For example, if you want to find a ticket which is the cheapest air ticket you can find, you just ask AI. You don't have to open a third-party app to match the price anymore.
AI developers counter that for every job lost to the technology, multiple new ones will be created by the new industries that AI will open up.
We're very optimistic that there are going to be fantastic jobs in the future, and that current jobs can get much better.
So on one hand, we're hearing that a lot of jobs could be lost in this new conceptual reality with artificial intelligence, and then on the flip side of the coin, you're hearing that it could create more jobs. So let's get into this now and just reintroduce our guest to you tonight. Professor Justin Robinson, a familiar face. He is the Pro-Vice Chancellor for the Board of Undergraduate Studies at the UWI Cave Hill campus. Anthony Harris in with us tonight. He's the President of Information Systems Security Association, the Barbados chapter, and Andre Woodvine is a musician, composer, and educator. Good to have you gentlemen on. I want to start with you, Professor Robinson. We heard about the impact that AI could have, both positive and negative. When you look at what is happening in the world of AI, what are some of the things that stand out for you as it continues to evolve?
Okay, thanks, and good evening to fellow panelists and your audience. Now, AI has been around for a long time, so this is actually not a new development. I certainly recall when I was doing my PhD at the University of Manchester in the 1990s, there was very active research. It goes back to the 60s, but it's clear that we've hit what you might call a tipping point. where technology has been developing, things have been happening, but it sort of hits a whole new point, and we are now dealing with something new. So it's clear that the developments in AI are at a point where it has the potential to significantly disrupt and transform a range of activities in our life. Now you ask about the impact. Are you asking generally, economically, or education specific?
There are so many different points that we can start at, but one of the most popular ones in the news headlines has been the emergence of ChatGPT. You're a professor at the UWI, and we hear about the help that it can give students with their examinations. So let's start there, because that's one of the more popular headlines. How concerned are you with the emergence of AI similar to ChatGPT in terms of how it impacts education and the rollout of examinations?
Right. So I'm not really a techie person per se, but in my job as Pro-Vice Chancellor for Undergraduate Studies, my day job, my responsibility is for the quality of academic programs across the UWI. And since November and the bursting of ChatGPT on the scene, I have been engrossed in many ways in little else. And it's really quite an extreme range of possibilities. And the responses around the world indicate the range of possibilities. So we had Italy totally ban ChatGPT initially. The school district of New York banned it as well. But on the other extreme, one view is that ChatGPT is really a brand. There are others. It's a language model which allows people to interact with a computer in a more natural and conversational way. So the GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer, and is really the name given to a family of natural language models developed by this company OpenAI. You know, it's a form of generative AI because it has the ability to produce what we might call AI results. So this model has been trained on a massive database, and it can pull together and give human-like responses. So at one extreme, AI models, language models like ChatGPT may now become an essential part of someone's digital literacy.
Wow.
So 30 years ago, you could have graduated with an accounting degree and you never sat in front of a computer 30, 40 years ago. Now, when I teach finance courses, and when I do things on Excel, students will say, but sir, this is not going to be on the exam. We don't have Excel in the exam. But you can't walk into anybody's job as a finance person and not be competent using a spreadsheet. Similarly, we may now be in a world where how do you function in a workplace or life and you can't use these models? So at one extreme, it may now become an essential part of digital literacy. The same way everybody nowadays knows their way around some kind of word processing program. You might just need this capability to be a productive citizen, or are you going to be left behind?
Well, listen, I got to ask you this before we go to Anthony and Andre. What will the UWI's response be to AI like this?
Okay, so our response is multifaceted. So our first step, and I say it's my job to deal with this, is to build awareness among the community, among our community of students and faculty and admin. You know, what is this? What are the issues? What are the risks? What are the potential benefits? So my first task is that everyone at UWI involved in education should be fully aware of these types of technologies. One of our immediate tasks is to protect the academic integrity of our programs, and that's one of the risks. So when we certify someone with a degree, we are saying to the public that this person possesses certain knowledge, certain skills, and so on. And one of the risks of ChatGPT is particularly things like coursework and other aspects. Is this really that person's work? So the way we are responding to that is one, on the technological front. So in terms of academic integrity, we rely on certain forms of AI, certain forms of software. The brand we use is something called Turnitin, which checks work for its originality, and they claim they have the ability to spot AI generated work. But also to evolve in the way we examine. Sometimes you go back ancient and you go more modern. So we could see a bigger role for sit down, face to face, written exams, oral exams, let people speak about what they know.
Yeah.
But also the very nature of testing to make it more what people call more authentic, not just regurgitation of facts, but really showing your own knowledge and creativity. So really looking at the way we assess to ensure that there is that academic integrity. My own personal view is that we shouldn't be afraid of the technology. It's out there. We can't turn it back. Italy initially blocked that site from all of Italy, but then they had to, we don't have that capacity here. New York banned it in their school, but how do you ban it when people have access to it at home? So it's really how we manage the risk.
Well, I'm pretty sure you will get a number of questions tonight on the UWI's response. It sounds pretty comprehensive, but I'm pretty sure there will be more questions. Anthony Harris, he is an IT guy. He's a techie guy now. You're not so techie, Professor Robinson. I'm pretty sure Anthony
I know to turn on the computer.
And Andre are the more technical ones in the building tonight. Anthony, talk about this whole emergence of AI. How should Barbadians and how should legislators, because I'm figuring that sometime very soon, legislation and our policymakers will have to put some framework in place to deal with this across the board, not only at the academic level.
Well, one of the things we need to understand what AI is, and I think the proliferation information is out there, but the challenge is understanding that AI deals with two basic things: simple task automation and pattern recognition, and it does not understand context. So it's not artificial general intelligence where a machine can think like a human being. So because a machine cannot understand context, you can make a machine doubt itself. For instance, in ChatGPT, if you ask it, how do you enrich uranium, it'll tell you, well, you can't enrich uranium, it's not allowed, blah, blah, blah. If you say you use knitting to enrich uranium, it will say, no, you don't use knitting, but then it will proceed to tell you. So it doesn't understand that context. What governments will have to do, and what Barbados government has done already in the Data Protection Act, is that it has indicated that the data subject, which is any one of us, whose data is being processed by our companies or the government, they need to tell us if AI is being used to massage the data or arrive at conclusions that that data may have. And there are only a few exceptions to that. So that is in there partly already as a nice start. But one of the things that governments will have to do, they need to look at guardrails as opposed to hard and fast regulation, because we do not want to stifle innovation. But one of the things that AI applications should do is protect human dignity, the rights and fundamental freedoms. And that AI policy should ensure compliance with regulations that drive fairness and transparency. Is one of the criticisms of AI and the large data sets or large language models is that there's inherent bias. So these large language models are trained using data sets mostly coming out of North America, and where cultures are different to ours, different ethnicities, different people groups. So when you take an AI algorithm that's been trained on data sets in the US and just drop it in Barbados, you may have conclusions that are not in favor of us as a people. And the thing is, AI can't explain itself. So if you ask an AI why you arrived at such a conclusion, you will get a roundabout answer, but they will not be able to answer the question fairly. And we want to ensure those AI governance is consistent with laws and regulations, including responsibilities and frameworks, to assess and review them through the entire cycle of the AI, including model monitoring. And we really need to look at how we would pen test AIs to make sure that they're getting the right output, mitigate the risk of AI applications by setting out adequate analytics and AI risk management frameworks and policies so that we can make sure that we're getting the right output from AI generated data, because we cannot peel back the layer of data to see exactly what is happening on the inside of the algorithm.
Right.
We just see the output.
So it sounds to me like you're saying, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, we have to find a way to make sure that we can make AI work for us while not infringing on our human rights.
Yes. So we need to strike that hybrid approach where you compare the AI era to the internet era. When the internet first started, people were afraid of its use, misuse. And with any other tool, AI can be used for good and it can be used for bad. But the governments will be charged and researchers will be charged with that responsibility on how to use AI to benefit the whole of mankind and not just one section of mankind. And notwithstanding the geopolitical issues that will arise, and this will be the next race, the AI race to find what we would call artificial general intelligence, where an AI can actually think like a human, understand certain contexts, explain themselves, and be able to operate with using less data. Because right now, AI requires massive amounts of data to mimic human responses.
It sounds like what's happening on the big screen in the cinema with Optimus Prime and friends in one of my favorite movies. That's a version of it. But let's talk about the music now, because it will affect, or can affect, that's what we'll hear now from Andre Woodvine, of course, renowned musician, composer, and also educating people as well. Talk to us about how this will affect the world of music and those who make the music.
Good evening, Shane, and good evening, other fellow humans. Thank you for having me on this panel. Before I answer your question directly, the first point I'd just like to throw out there is that the other day I sort of paused and I thought, 10,000 years of the history of civilization since agriculture, and we are right here witnessing the birth of AI, so to speak, and what an incredible time to be around and to be taking all this in. I have a lot of different thoughts about ChatGPT. I've been messing around with it myself here and there. It's given me incorrect information already, for which it apologized. It managed to plagiarize a Beatles lyric for me. I asked it, to create a lyric about an octopus's garden in the shade, and it spat out the Beatles lyric by the same name very quickly. So it is not, it would be a mistake to say, oh, artificial intelligence, it knows everything, it's perfect, it doesn't make mistakes. In terms of the art world, it's really made people sit up and think. You look at other technologies that have come along, they've tended to eliminate workers on a production line, or perhaps there might be an easier way to manufacture something or to do something. But now we're talking about the possibility of an artificial intelligence being creative and actually creating content that people might be interested in. The other challenge is that ChatGPT, as a large language model, is trained, and it's trained on pretty much all the material that we have on the internet. The question is, does copyright exist on the material that's been used to train it? Does that constitute fair use? And then the various works that an artificial intelligence might be encouraged to create. The US Copyright Office has already said copyright does not exist in those. Copyright can only exist in works created by a human being. So it's really it's really got the art world, both music and fine art. It's really got us all sitting up and taking note, if you'll excuse the pun.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that people are
That
home
was a bad one.
sitting up and taking
I'm
note
sure.
as well. And callers, you will want to join us. So you know the numbers, 228-5562, 228-5563, so you can call us with your questions for our panel. We'll take a quick break and we'll be back with more as we talk about artificial intelligence, the risks and the rewards right here on The People's Business. Time to go to the phone lines so that we can field your questions and hopefully share a better understanding of what is happening in the world of artificial intelligence. Good night, caller. Welcome to The People's Business. What's your question or comment?
A comment would be, my concern, if anything, would be for the public to understand what they're seeing, if it's true or not. Classic example. My greatest worry, and I make no bones about it. I've said it in the press already, is that the next election is going to be precious, because right now, as one of the panelists was talking about copyright, what about the possibility of some person taking the Prime Minister's words, likeness, or voice and likeness, and creating political propaganda where they did not say that, the person did not say that, whether it be Prime Minister or the opposition leader, whoever that particular individual is, and you have this content that the people cannot decipher. I think for the public right now, the biggest question is not only understanding what, the current kid on the block is GPT, but the other things like Midjourney, the other platforms that create artificial intelligence works. But my concern is right now, for the public, is to know that this thing exists and to have a healthy disbelief of what we see right now, or a little bit of skepticism. So my question to the panelists is, what do you think would be the impact of artificial intelligence on the general election, where the people have to buy into this type of scenario en masse?
That's a good question, because one of the jobs that could be affected, according to the reporting that we saw from Al Jazeera, are the journalists. We could be out of work, so then ChatGPT could be doing the work for us, and then there's that concern about fake news. So Anthony, I'll come to you first. How do we address a situation like that, or avoid a situation where we get misinformation or misrepresentation of someone? For instance, the caller used the example of the Prime Minister.
Well, the thing is that any person that would use a tool to do that obviously has a nefarious agenda in mind. And I agree with the caller to treat everything with a dose of skepticism. But the technology out there to do what they call image synthesis, where you can take likenesses, I'm sure we've seen the one with the Pope dunking, where you can create these deep fakes, which are really hard to distinguish from reality, because it's coded on a different level and it's stitching those images and get together in a way that the human eye cannot tell the difference. So one of the things we do is that the journalists, they need to do their investigations. When these things come to the fore, they need to jump on it quickly, investigate it, and try to track the source of it, and then see if it's just political propaganda or maybe it's something that is true. But what the populace needs to do is treat it with a dose of skepticism until a journalist, a human being, comes and says, okay, this is right, this is wrong, discard it, move forward. And remember that AI cannot understand context. So in the generation of this synthesis, it needs a human being to still shape the way the video works. You understand? So human beings are still involved in this process, but the journalists will always be there because they need to represent the human side of events and to be able to tell the human story.
Well, thanks for the vote of confidence, because according to the reporter earlier, we may be out of work shortly if this continues on this trajectory. Let's go back to the phone line. We have another caller there. Good night. Welcome to the People's Business. What's your question or comment for the panel?
Yeah, good night, Shane, to you on the panel. My two questions would be, what is the advantage and disadvantage of it?
Pretty straightforward. We covered some of that in our introduction, but we can go over again for our caller. Professor Robinson, just a quick overview of some of the advantages and disadvantages of AI, the risks and the rewards.
Okay, so good evening again. So if you wanted to do some research about global warming, right now, so if you want to do some research about global warming, you could go and Google several websites and then pull together that information. Something like ChatGPT can be quite efficient in pulling that information together for you in a very rapid way. So in that way, it's a very powerful tool for pulling together information. So we talk about education reform. There are some kids whose parents can afford to send them to extra lessons. Some persons who can't afford to pay that lessons fee every week, every month. Can tools like ChatGPT give them a leg up in terms of being their own personal tutors and so on? So I think there are tremendous possibilities there in terms of education. In terms of the economy, I think Andre provides some context. What are the possibilities? So one economist puts it that if you do a graph, Shane, of world GDP, we hear about all these empires going back, Roman and other, but the graph of world GDP is essentially flat until around 1800, when you have the Industrial Revolution. And it's at that point, it just takes off dramatically. And as one person put it, before the Industrial Revolution, what we could produce and generate as humans was limited by our muscle power as humans and the muscle power of animals. But once we could break that shackle and use machine power, we saw what happened. And some people argue that AI now offers a chance to unshackle us from the limits of our own mental capacities. So right now, we can only think so fast. We can only handle so many calculations. We get tired, we get distracted by emotions and so on. Now AI offers the promise that we can now do much more complex mental tasks, have them done for us in a very efficient, constant manner. And that can open a whole new range of possibilities. You know, a machine learning, systematically going at the problem of cancer might come up with something that the human capacity with our mental capacity can't, just doing it day in, day out. Right. Now, however, like with anything, there are downsides. So some of the guys mentioned it already, you know, the AI models reflect all the biases out there. So when we are training, so we recognize if you ask ChatGPT to give you a list of the 10 great philosophers, it's going to give you 10 white Western philosophers, because the model is going to reflect all the biases that are out there already. So humans have to be on the lookout for that. We have seen what happened with the Industrial Revolution. Now we have a problem of climate change.
Yeah.
You know, we have global warming and all of that. So there's a set of unknown risks. But it's a whole new world. I mean, I think it's something we forget context. 200 years ago, 95% of humans on the planet would have been involved in some form of agricultural labor. With the Industrial Revolution, we have a total flip of that. So there are opportunities, but we are also going into a great unknown. I think that's probably as best as I can put it.
So it's like we're going into that unknown yet again. So, well, yes, it will be an experience.
Possibilities, tremendous possibilities, and we have lived with the gains of the Industrial Revolution, but we are also living with the downsides. You know, when you create the car, you create the hit and run accident. You know, when you create the ship, you create the shipwreck. You know, so it's how I think it's how you manage these risks.
Okay, let's go back again. We have another caller. The calls are coming in swiftly. Good night, caller. Welcome to the People's Business. You have a question or a comment for our panel?
Yes. Good afternoon, gentlemen. Professor Robinson, one quick question for you, sir. The question is as follows. When would the university start offering courses so that people could become trained in AI, because that is the way of the future? The second question I have is as follows. If small economies like ours are not with the technology, we will be left way behind. What is the thinking of the panel with regard to how the economy will keep up as we go along? Thank you.
So the question was for you, Professor Robinson, but Andre, you wanted to weigh in there?
I think the first part is...
Hold on, Professor Robinson. Andre, let's hear from Andre for a second.
Yeah, sorry.
Well, sure. No, that's all right. That's one of my concerns too. That AI doesn't become it's only available then to developed or more developed countries and geographical areas than ours, or certainly the software that AI is incorporated into is only available outside of Barbados. We as musicians, we're constantly having to bang our heads against licensing issues. You want to use a piece of software, but you can't because of the geographical area that you're in. So I really hope that we don't have a situation where we're dividing the world into the haves and the have-nots even more than we already are.
Okay, let's take a quick break. Professor Robinson, when we come back from that break, I'll let you respond to the caller's question directly, as well as we get more into this world of AI right here on The People's Business. So we had a number of callers so far here on People's Business as we speak about artificial intelligence, the risks and the rewards. Professor Robinson, I want to get the caller's question answered from you now, because he directed it to you initially in terms of when will UWI do something directly in terms of courses to address this new revolution in AI?
Okay, so in terms of AI courses, answering that is easy. We do have a number of AI courses already being offered in our books in our departments of computer science. So if someone wanted to sign up and audit or follow a course on AI, they already exist across our 4 campuses. And the Five Islands campus actually has an entire department of artificial intelligence. So in terms of courses being offered, and our scholars are quite active in research around AI. I mean, even a non-techie like me, I do use machine learning and other tools as part of my research. In our faculty, social sciences, which is not a tech department, Dion Greenwich and others do quite a bit in machine learning and analytics. So we do have those courses already at UWI, and there is active research among scholars in this area.
Mr. Harris, Anthony, is there anything that we can do, Barbados as a whole, whether it be at the policy level or even with the private sector, to keep up with what's happening? Because the technology tends to move really, really fast. And Barbados, there are certain things that we've been left behind in, and I think that we don't want to be playing catch up yet again. So is there anything that we can do to keep pace with this revolution in AI?
well, one of the things that Professor Robinson just mentioned is AI research. AI research is the blood that is pumping the heart of AI. Research, research, research. And one of the challenges that we as a country will face as this geopolitical war rages over AI between the US, Russia, China is that the ability to process those large language models is very computer intensive. So a company like NVIDIA, their stock is like up 170% because they are the premier chip providers for these computers that are processing AI, and their chips are optimized for AI processing. So we have to ensure that we align ourselves with the right movers and shakers so that we can be part of the movement, because we cannot, as a small island state, have our own processing power to power our AI futures and hopes. So we have to, as Mr. Barra said, be friends of many but satellites of none. So we will continue to build relationships and partnerships with universities through the UWI and other universities, other companies that are doing AI development, because it can be expensive. ChatGPT, as Professor Rob says, a brand is just one of the things of AI. AI goes towards self-driving cars. Self-driving cars work well with Tesla on a highway, but could you imagine a self-driving car on Barbados' roads? Impossible.
I'd love to see it.
Self-driving car in San Francisco, and I saw this car with no driver, and it's driving a Chevy Bolt. And I looked at it like double take, because I can't believe a self-driving car is driving in San Francisco. So those are the things that we're seeing, and we're seeing that we need to partner with academics, partner with companies. Microsoft is bringing out their Microsoft 365 Copilot, which is going to use the ChatGPT as the back end. So there are opportunities for us, but to really get in the game, we need to maintain those partnerships with universities and companies in the US and other friendly nations towards us.
Andre, in terms of your teaching now, the teaching side of things, is this a conversation that you and your students are having about how AI can be a benefit or a curse?
We have had conversations in the context of music business, yes. And I think the musicians, are a little bit sort of divided. Some are saying, oh, it's going to be okay, and others are saying, not so sure. The one thing that I can say personally is that regardless of how AI affects the arts, it won't be able to take away that spark that I get when I create something. It may make it more difficult for me to sell that thing if there's competition from an AI that can create works cheaper and easier than I can. But I don't think it can take away the joy that human beings feel when they actually create something of artistic value. And that's something important to hold on to, I think.
Mm. And it's interesting to get the feedback from students, because in my conversations, all I hear is about the help it can provide students with those exams. What about working with ChatGPT? Well, let's take that, because as Professor Robinson and as Anthony mentioned, that's a brand. What about working with artificial intelligence to create? Is that a possibility?
Working with AI and from an artistic point of view, yeah, certainly, absolutely. You could use AI as a part of the creative process. What's interesting again is, from a copyright point of view, how do you figure out how much of that artistic work is AI and how much of it was human? The part that concerns me is that any time you have a technology that creates an opportunity to do something cheaper and faster, it's human nature to want to go that route. So if you need a piece of music, for example, for the theme song for the People's Business, and instead of engaging a composer, you come to the conclusion that you can dial up an AI and with a small subscription get a fantastic theme, or maybe a choice of 400 themes in the space of 5 seconds. Which route are you going to take? And if you're a young aspiring musician and you're trying to break into production or composition, how do you compete with that?
Hard, very hard to compete with that.
It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I think we have another caller on the line, so let's go there. Good night. Welcome to the People's Business. What's your question or comment? Okay, that we seem to have lost that caller. Professor Robinson, you wanted to jump in?
Yeah, I wanted to take up on what Andre was saying, because even before AI, one of the ways that we at we try to manage cheating on research papers is we subscribe to a company called Turnitin. So when you submit an assignment at you have to run it through Turnitin, and their software tells us whether it was likely to be original or not. Once ChatGPT came on the scene, I would have engaged them and said, well, okay, can you guys spot these things? And they said, yes, they can. And when I saw the question, what they said, I found it interesting. And in terms of what Andre said, they found that ChatGPT is very average in a way that humans are not. So, if you think of people writing music, you have your Gabbies, you have your Andre Woodvine, and you have others and so on. ChatGPT is very average, and it's one of the ways that they can spot work coming out of ChatGPT. It doesn't have that spark of human creativity. That little extra something. There is like your average batsman. It's not a brand. In batting, you have a Brian Lara, you have a Chandler Paul. They all do it slightly differently. They can be effective in different ways. ChatGPT tends to be very mechanistic, very predictable. And so I say that to students.
Like a Darren Ganga?
So I said, if you go to ChatGPT for an answer to a question, you might not get an A answer.
Right. But you get an answer that would get you to pass.
It's a B answer. You get something very average throughout. And that, it might get better with time, but that's what we tend to see with those things right now. It pulls the information, but what you get is not an A-class type of response. It doesn't yet have that capacity. So understanding the limitations, the need for journalists and others to vet. There was a case that was popular on CNN, I think it was last week, where some lawyers relied on ChatGPT and went to court with some bogus cases. So humans being able to actually spot and almost fact check what you are getting out there may still be a very important piece of the pie going forward.
And it comes to that point you made right there is about really what Anthony was saying before as well, where you really have to have a human to do that fact checking, a journalist, for instance, in fact checking some of the stories that may come out, especially when it comes to fake news. So it's good that that human interaction is able to still be that A grade or that stellar moment where you can point out where ChatGPT is being used. Anthony, on that note, I would want to know how would you suggest we here in Barbados go forward using the artificial intelligence, using the technology to our benefit and not to our demise?
Well, one of the things we need to understand is that we have to have some level of data protection surrounding how AI is used right now. As what Vi was noting to is that we don't have consent. You are putting information into ChatGPT, and it's not asking for your consent, and it's going to use your data to proliferate other data. We need to understand how AI works in combination with human processes to have a positive impact on the value chain, which increases efficiencies and offers new solutions. As Professor Robinson said, we need to understand the limitations of AI in our customer journey as we train to sell to people. Human input is still invaluable in critical decisions. We need to commit to upskilling our workforce. As I said earlier, they can do simple, repetitive jobs, and we need humans to do the higher value jobs, so there'll still be need for human beings. And you need to look at how we validate the algorithms that's being used and have an independent evaluation, whether that is pen testing it, getting a top-notch AI researcher to go through and try to understand better how it works. And understand that AI is coming to business sectors such as insurance and banking. It's probably already there in some shape, form, or fashion, but it needs to be a continuous engagement of all the stakeholders to make sure that we respond to the changing needs and values of our society so that the AI adds to the human dignity in society and does not take away from it. And that's, I think, where we need to go, because other countries are putting laws in place to make sure that if you apply for a job and it's being reviewed by an AI automated process, that you're not disadvantaged because of implicit bias, and there should be opportunity for you to have your resume or loan application or insurance claim reviewed by a human being to make sure that the best outcome is available to you as a customer to that company. So I think that's where we need to take AI as we try to integrate it into our society and our businesses. The business need to evaluate the risk of using AI, because it's not all rainbows and sunshine. There are some negative connotations surrounding AI that you as a company or brand need to manage carefully to make sure that the AI adds value to your business and does not detract from your business.
Yeah, and that's why we're here tonight, to shine some light through those dark clouds and those concerns surrounding artificial intelligence. We'll take another quick break. When we come back, we'll wrap up our conversation on artificial intelligence, get those final comments. Those of you callers who want to have your final questions answered, you know those numbers to call, 228-5562, 228-5563. We'll be back in a moment. A very rewarding discussion tonight on artificial intelligence, the risks and the rewards, and we continue that as we go into the final minutes of the show. We have another caller on the line here on the People's Business. Good night, caller. Welcome to the People's Business. What's your question?
Yeah, I'd just like to make a comment, right? I think that we are putting too much faith, right, in the people who are developing AI, right? I personally think that it's going to be a big sham, right? And just like artificial food, all this processed food, and now we realize that you got to abandon that and go back to the natural food, right? when you're messing with real humanity, people intelligent and things, man and there yet. And in a year or two, we try it out, we're going to ban AI. Okay? So I think we get to carry away about it.
Thank you, caller, for your comment. Professor Robinson, you think that in a couple of years' time, this fuss surrounding artificial intelligence will die down?
No, I don't think so. In fact, one of the things I was hoping I get a chance to say is that there is already a lot of AI with us. A lot of loan decisions. I mean, my area is finance. The financial services industry is heavily reliant on AI already. You go on to a website for a bank or any other entity, you might be engaging with a bot. So there's already a lot of AI as part of our society. There is an arms race. I mean, in simpler ways. I mean, I was quite shocked. I was a very informed person, but when you go on a website, Shane, and they ask you to identify all the traffic lights and so on and all the lanes?
Yeah.
Do you know that is part of AI training?
I do. I know a lot of people think it's just part of the course. It's just a normal part of the process. But it is artificial intelligence in the works.
Right. So there is already a lot of AI with us. I think that's
trying to determine really if you are the artificial intelligence.
Yes, that's what it's really for. If you're a human being. It's a human test. It's a test for humanity.
Right, but it's also training the machines to recognize things, that's a lot of what that is. But I think, as Andre said, the impetus to do things faster, cheaper has always been a feature. I mean, that's why we had slavery, so many things happen. It's a way to improve your bottom line. And if the AI can be a way to to produce things faster, cheaper, that incentive is there. So I don't think it's going to go away. It's really how you construct the guardrails around it. You invent the ship, it allows you to get across the waters. But when you invent the ship, you invent the shipwreck. Now, the people who are inventing ships, trying to build bigger, better, faster ships, are not necessarily that focused on the safety of ships. That might be a very different type of person, different type of mindset. So it's really how we build out the guardrails around this technology, which really has the potential to transform our lives for good and bad the way the Industrial Revolution did. And I don't think, because we've lived with it so long, I don't think we recognize if somebody who was alive in 1600 came back today, it would be a totally different world from the way that they lived it because of the Industrial Revolution. And AI has a similar potential.
We have another caller. Anthony, I know you wanted to jump in there to chime in. Let's get the caller's comment or question first. Caller, good night. Welcome. What's your question or comment?
Good night, sir. The question is a business question, really. Current environment. Where are we as a society, as an island, in relation to artificial intelligence? What are we doing? I studied AI almost 40 years ago. And so, I want to know, what are we looking at in terms of where we are today, and what are we going to do about it as we march forward, because the technology is going to march just as fast as we are. Thank you.
Okay, Anthony, so I'll let you take that one, a quick synopsis on where we are and where we're going.
Well, where we are now part of the contribution to digital data. Digital data is one of the things that allow AI to proliferate the way it has, because we contribute to that large data set. We have to make sure that we have a voice at the table. And it's going to be a voice that has to rise to the level of CARICOM or the UN, where we have a say in what happens, because we as a small island state cannot impact AI research and development in a meaningful way. If we look at what we did with solar technology research, we were the pioneers, but we didn't capitalize on it and we were left behind. China is now a major producer of solar panels and solar technology, and we cannot stand by and watch it happen yet again with something else. So we have to pivot with our leadership to get us a seat at the table, to agitate for that, because it is important to our survival as an island state that we are up there with everybody else. Notwithstanding, as I mentioned before, these geopolitical issues that will arise, because it is now an arms race for who can develop the most powerful AI in the world. And we just have to make sure that we are not left behind, that we have access to that technology. And it's almost going to become a human right to have access to AI. We just, our industries won't survive without it, because if we are cut off from AI development using AI services and resources, we are going to be back in like using rocks and hammers.
Got you. Andre, what would you like to see for the development of AI, or how we use it here on the island? Where would you like to see it go?
Where would I like to see it go? That's a really good question. I would like. I am pro AI. I mean, I'm although I might be a bit negative about the impacts of it on the arts at times. I'm definitely pro AI, and I just hope that that humanity doesn't drop the ball with it and use it for things that maybe aren't in our best interests. You know, when you look at
we can just
technology,
that's the nature of humanity.
Yeah,
sorry to be
I
the pessimist, but
yeah, yeah.
That's the nature of life. Someone out there is just gonna use it to do good, the general population, and then the flip side of things, and that's how we see it play out even on the big screen. What about you, Professor Robinson? What would you like to see for the advancement of AI and how we use it here?
Well, as I said earlier, there's already a lot of AI in use by businesses in Barbados. I think it's inevitable as we are a very open society. A lot of our businesses have international links. So these AI technologies are already heavily used in Barbados. I think the challenge for us is to build the guardrails, to protect people's rights. That we don't let financial institutions make all the loan decisions based on AI and all those biases that are embedded in those decisions, and we don't have a way to actually redress that. So I think the AI is here. It's going to be a powerful tool, and my expectation is, like with any technology, we are going to be very involved in its usage. The two angles I see: how do we have those safeguards, and how do we move beyond being consumers of AI? So AI is a big area. There might be some small aspect of AI that we can zero in on and be world leaders in.
Yeah.
So I would like us also to see how entrepreneurs, the state nudging, the university, how do we move beyond consumers, because there is that arms race out there. My own betting, I'm betting on China to win it, because they have just more people online so they can develop their AI faster. But it's how we plug into these global networks and move beyond being consumers, but also ensure we have the protections in place.
Yeah, we got to join the race together, and hopefully Barbados, we get our legislative framework, our policy framework, and our act together. And through this program, more people now know a lot more and understand a bit more about where we are as far as artificial intelligence is concerned. I really want to thank you, gentlemen, for sharing with us here on The People's Business. A real big thank you to you for your time, and I want to thank you, viewers, as well, for spending the time here with us. I'm Shane Seeley. Continue to enjoy the rest of your Sunday.